Francis Ngannou is among the deadliest fighters in MMA, and in this video, we're going to prove that to you. We're going to discuss some of the crazy moments when Francis Ngannou shocked the entire MMA world, so make sure to keep watching to the end. Francis Ngannou versus Andrei Arlovsky. At the beginning of 2017, Francis Ngannou had a perfect record of 4-0 in the UFC. Since making his promotional debut 2 years earlier, the Cameroonian has earned a reputation for possessing a remarkable amount of talent and strength, as evidenced by the fact that he has won 3 knockouts or technical knockouts and 1 submission match in the organization. As soon as his evident potential was brought to the matchmakers' attention, they began setting him up with increasingly prominent partners. At UFC on Fox 23, Ngannou faced Andrei Arlovsky, a former heavyweight champion of the UFC. It was widely anticipated that Francis Ngannou would have difficulty competing against Andrei Arlovsky's expertise. Before the fight, the Cameroonian fighter had a reputation for having only one fighting style. After 92 seconds of the first round, the fight was stopped after Ngannou delivered a right uppercut that knocked Arlovsky off his feet and sent him crashing to the mat. As the former champion attempted to defend himself on the mat, the Predator followed up with a series of devastating attacks, which ultimately led to the referee stopping the bout. Following the fight, Ngannou's popularity soared to new heights. When pitted against any adversary, his might consistently emerged as the decisive factor in the outcome. When the Predator defeated MMA great and former champion Andrei, the Last Emperor, Arlovsky, many began to take notice of him as a possible future champion. Francis Ngannou versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik. After a stunning knockout or technical knockout victory in the first round over Curtis Blades, Cain Velasquez, and Junior Dos Santos, it was obvious that the Predator had obviously earned another opportunity at the heavyweight crown. However, because the then champion Stipe Miocic was in the middle of a drawn-out trilogy with Daniel Cormier, Ngannou was forced to wait it out on the sidelines. At UFC 248, the Cameroonian was scheduled to compete against Jairzinho Rozenstruik, a kickboxing veteran and a knockout artist who had never been defeated. Rozenstruik was coming off a shocking knockout victory over Alistair Overeem, and he even called out Ngannou in his post-fight interview. The fact that Biggie Boy Rozenstruik also had the ability to knock someone out with one punch led many people to assume that Ngannou would have his hands full with Rozenstruik. The fight, however, lasted about 20 seconds, ended when Ngannou storms Rozenstruik after their first exchange and viciously knocked him out. He's currently riding a string of 4 consecutive knockout victories and is scheduled to face Stipe Miocic in his upcoming fight. It took him a total of 162 seconds to win successive bouts over Curtis Blades, Cain Velasquez, Junior Dos Santos, and Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Francis Ngannou versus Alistair Overeem. The co-main event of UFC 218, which took place in Detroit, Michigan, featured a fight between Francis Ngannou and Alistair Overeem. At the time, Ngannou had compiled a winning streak of 5 fights and was hunting for a bout against the champion, who was, at the time, Stipe Miocic. During this time period, Overeem was coming off consecutive victories over Mark Hunt and Fabricio Werdum, and he was also vying for the title. Both combatants appeared to be just one bout away from a crack at the championship. It was remarkable how much experience the two heavyweights had in common with one another. Overeem, who has practiced martial arts for his whole life, began his kickboxing training at a very young age and went on to win heavyweight championships in K1, Strikeforce, and Dream. The Dutchman made history by becoming the first fighter to simultaneously hold the world title in both mixed martial arts and kickboxing. In 2018, he won both the world championships for K1 kickboxing and the world champion for Dream MMA. It was his first fight against Francis Ngannou, and he entered it with a professional record of 43-15-1. Ngannou had just begun his professional mixed martial arts career just 4 years before the battle, yet he entered the bout with a record of 10-1. In spite of this, the Cameroonian delivered one of the most powerful uppercuts that have ever been witnessed in combat sports, which resulted in the Dutch opponent being knocked out in less than 2 minutes of the first round. After an incredible finish, Francis Ngannou earned a crack at the heavyweight championship. He was awarded the Knockout of the Year title by MMA Fighting in 2017. After the fight, Ngannou's power went from being recognized to legendary, and as a result, he was the favorite to win the championship fight against Stipe Miocic. His spectacular knockout of Alistair Overeem continues to be one of the most remarkable moments in the history of Ultimate Fighting Championship. Stipe Miocic versus Francis Ngannou. Over the course of the past 4 years, Francis Ngannou and Stipe Miocic have engaged in a highly entertaining and memorable rivalry. In 2018, when Miocic was a dominant champion and Ngannou was a contender on the rise, the two met for the first time in a bout that would decide the fate of the division. After finishing all of his opponents in the UFC before his first fight with Miocic, Ngannou was the betting favorite coming into the battle against the champion who had been holding the title for the previous year. On the other hand, Miocic defeated Ngannou on the night, exposing the latter's subpar wrestling and a lack of cardio in the process. Miocic showed an amazing heart and resilience to win. Between the years 2018 and 2020, Ngannou embarked on another knockout rampage in order to earn another opportunity at Miocic's title. The headlining bout of UFC 260 in Las Vegas saw the two competitors going head-to-head. This time around, Ngannou had a significantly improved level of preparation. Instead of trying to end the fight in the first round by knocking out his opponent, he decided to hit his big leg and body kicks instead. Ngannou completely thwarted Miocic's attempt at a takedown and turned the tables on the champion, who was in control of the situation when they fought. Ngannou knocked out Miocic in the second round with a devastating left hook that sent the champion down to the ground. The heavyweight division of the Ultimate Fighting Championship had entered a new era with the crowning of a new champion. Francis Ngannou versus Luis Enrique. The fight between Francis Ngannou and Luis Enrique served as Francis Ngannou's debut in front of UFC fans and became a defining moment for the remainder of his career. It was at UFC on Fox 17 in Orlando, Florida, that he first competed in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. His opponent was Luis Enrique, who was also competing for the first time in the organization. Ngannou had a winning record of 5-1 heading into the fight. After building a name for himself on the provincial mixed martial arts scene all throughout Europe, he was given a contract. Enrique had a record of 8-1 coming into the fight, which he was quite confident about. It's interesting to note that their battle was the first one in the early preliminary rounds. Oh, how the world of the Predator has evolved over the years. At the time, both Francis Ngannou and Luis Enrique exhibited a level of one-dimensionality that was rather high. While Enrique won fights mostly because of his wrestling and Brazilian jiu-jitsu credentials, Ngannou was known for his powerful punches and had a reputation for being a power puncher. The secret of success for both competitors was very clear. Ngannou needed to make sure that the battle took place standing up, while Enrique wanted to drag the Predator down to the canvas and seek submissions against the lesser grappler. In the opening minutes of the first round, the two heavyweights tested their abilities against one another. Enrique was successful in bringing Ngannou to the ground and maintaining control over him from the top position for a substantial portion of the remaining time in the round. After having some success with his wrestling in the first round, Enrique made an effort to continue that success in the second. However, Ngannou was able to thwart the Brazilian's takedown attempts, which ensured that the bout would take place standing up. In the third minute of the second round, the Predator hit an uppercut that put an end to Enrique's fight. Yeah, that's all for today's episode. Also, if you liked the video, be sure to click that thumbs up button, and if you're looking for more interesting content, then hit the subscribe button for future updates.